Explanation as to how we are going to use our interview answers to make our video presentation. So on this Word document, I have pulled out a couple example interview answers that another student had gotten from their manager. And I'm going to go through the analyzing piece that I went through in class, or how we decided the important parts to pick out of these responses. So this one is kind of a tougher one to analyze. The question was, give an example of a tough decision you had to make. They gave their full explanation that you can read over. They were in charge of firing a part-time employee. The employee was kind of defensive. They were kind of angry. They had poor performance, and their performance continued to go downhill as they had these conversations, which ultimately ended in their termination or them losing their job. So looking at some of those details, since this is a piece of her job, this is a role or one of her responsibilities, we can try to connect that to a manager function. So after reading through this, my best guess is that this is the control phase of our 4 manager functions. And then I'm going to give my reason why. So I said that it is the control phase out of those 4 manager functions. And I know that controlling means that I'm monitoring my environment, I'm checking in with my employees, I'm tracking their progress towards our goals, and then I'm making some decisions and helping my employees as they move forward. And so we can see that this manager, they did interact with their employees. They met with them. They noticed that their performance had gone downhill. We see that it made their performance worse. So clearly they were monitoring the environment. They were checking in with their employees, and they were tracking their progress because she saw that their performance was low. So they weren't trying to reach their goals. And then based on all of that information, she had to make a decision. So in this unfortunate situation, she had to let this employee go because they had poor performance. So that is how that falls into the control phase. The next question, how would your employees describe the culture of your department, division, business, or unit? And this manager said cohesive, synergetic, innovative, and collaborative. This is what really stuck out to me. We have talked about this collaborative term before, and we use that as a way to describe the democratic leadership style. So by seeing that, my instinct is to say that this is a democratic leadership. And for reason 1, I said that employees described it as collaborative. Remember that when you go through and you are answering all of these questions in your script, you have to have 2 examples to get full points. So saying that employees would describe this as a collaborative environment counts as one of those examples. Hopefully, somewhere else in these interview questions, you are able to pull from another piece to get a second example. And then this third question, would you say that you work directly with customers, with managers of various levels, or mainly with executives? She works with managers and executives. So but she works more with the executives. So my best guess would that be that she's somewhere in that middle management, maybe an upper level middle manager. And we say this because she specified that she both works with other managers and with executives. So she's probably part of that communication between some lower level managers and the upper level managers. So I analyzed just those 3 questions. And now that I have that information, I took a little bit of notes below. As you can see, I'm going to take those thoughts that I had and transfer them to my script. And that's what I've done here. So I start off, I picked the script that I wanted, and now I start writing. And we're going to write this as a narrative. So I start off with my intro slide. I just introduce this manager, tell me where she works. Maybe if I know this person, I could talk about how I know them. But keep in mind, you only have 150 words on this first slide. So you have to keep it pretty short. 2 to 3 sentences is perfectly fine. And then my recommendation would be for all of the next few slides, depending on how many slides you chose, you should do 1 slide per question or possibly double them up. So my next slide, I initially went into management positions. So again, we're writing this as a narrative. So I said Mrs. Hector would fit into the middle manager position. She works with other managers as well as executives, so she's part of the communication between different levels. That would be example 1, that she works with other managers, she is a part of the communication. And then I put she also ... because I would need to pull a second example from our interview. I still had a lot of spots left, so I decided to add my manager roles here. I also found that the manager role or roles that she fits into best are blank, because I would want to decide the manager roles, and then I would want to give 2 examples as to how she fits that role or roles. On the next slide, I went into manager functions. I chose to do this one by itself because I'm talking a little bit more about it. I said one manager function that Mrs. Hector aligns with is the controlling phase. And then in a little bit more detail, I explained what I had written on this Word doc when I analyzed that interview question or answer. I wrote down a sentence or 2, and then I just expanded it a little bit more, made it a little more professional sounding. And then I ended, that shows me that I've hit all of my pieces. I have my leadership style, I have my manager level, I have my manager roles, I have my manager functions. And then the last thing that I needed to talk about was whether I would like to work for this person. And this is simply a really quick just opinion. I think that Elise Hector would be a great person to work for because, give my reason as to why I think they would be great. Once I have finished all of my slides, do not move on to the next part until you have finished every single one of your slides, written as a narrative. I'm going to go down to choose visuals, and it will try to match the words that I have written in my script with a couple pictures to kind of make the slides look a little more engaging. So, for example, they picked out a couple different pieces, and they added some graphics there. I'm happy with these, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Looking at this, again, they grabbed some keywords, and they are using that to make them images. But I don't like this image. I want to change it. So I'm just going to click on it. I'll go to something else. I could always search for a new image. I could search for hiring and see what comes up there. And that's the one that's the graphic I want to use now. So feel free to move these, change these as you see fit. Maybe I want to move this one up here and swap those locations. All of those are perfectly fine as long as you have something engaging to look at. Again, they're going to do this for every single slide. Change things as you see fit. For example, we see the word goal, and so they put a soccer goal. That doesn't make sense with what we have. Maybe that makes a little bit more sense, or the bullseye makes a little bit more sense, or maybe something totally different makes sense. So make sure that you are looking at these graphics. If I see like a soccer ball, it probably doesn't make sense with your manager interview. Then I am going to finalize. And it automatically puts Paul. These are all paid versions. I do not want you to pay for it. The same with recording your own voice. Feel free to just use Paul. And we are going to be able to see our video.
Elise Hector. She is a professor and coordinator at Graceland University. While she does teach classes, she also has managerial duties.
We can see what each slide would sound like.
After interviewing, I believe that Elise Hector is a democratic leader. I found that her employees would describe the office culture as collaborative and innovative.
Alrighty. Once you have checked all of your slides, they sound good, and you are happy with all of the wording that you have put on there, you are going to finalize your video, and then that will give you a link that you can then submit on Canvas. But again, make sure that you are fully happy. Once you finalize your video, you are not able to go back and edit it. So do not finalize it unless you are fully happy with your project.